Hey everybody, welcome to Inbound Now. I'm your host, David Wells. We're joined here with a very special guest, Mr. Dan Schawbel. Welcome to the show, Dan.
Thanks for having me, David, and you actually said my name right. So I'm very impressed.
I had to research it beforehand, it's one of those names you're not really sure. But yeah, Dan is the author of Me 2.0. He's what Fast Company has called the personal branding force of nature. He's been quoted in Business Week, Inc. Magazine, New York Times, a bunch of places. He was in the Inc. 30 Under 30. It's like, Dan, what haven't you done?
Well, a lot of things. I'm only 27, so I'm always learning and I'm always meeting new people and seeing how far I can take this personal branding movement.
Right. And yeah, he also runs his own agency, Millennial Branding, and he's a professional speaker, travels all around talking on the topic of what we're going to be talking about today, and that is personal branding. So, you ready to jump into it?
Let's do it. Let's make it happen.
Let's do it. So, for those new to the idea of personal branding, what exactly is personal branding in your mind?
So personal branding is about unearthing what makes you special and unique in the marketplace, and then communicating that through various mediums to the specific people you want to go after. Not everyone. Don't try and mass market yourself. Don't try and appease everyone. You want to be very niche, at least in the beginning. So the way I started was I was personal branding spokesperson for Gen Y, and then I became personal branding expert when my expertise was more proven, and then I just switched to personal branding expert instead of having the Gen Y, because older people were using the advice in my book even more so than younger people, so I figured that I had to reposition myself to appease the larger group of people.
Right.
But I started small. I started small so I could get visibility, and I think that a lot of people are just trying to bite off too much, when if you think really small and go niche, then you can spread your wings, you can take a larger portion of the market share at a later point.
Gotcha. So it's really about like defining down something very specific instead of going for something really broad where there's already tons and tons of people that are known for that. It's really building up from there, right?
Yeah, don't be a social media guru. Don't be just another finance expert. Narrow it down as much as you can, because if you do that, you'll probably be able to rank higher in search engines, which will give you more visibility. You can become the expert at that topic for that group of people, which means the media will call on you more, and you'll be able to really communicate more with your audience, because if you think about it, if there's two different people, right, and they're both personal finance expert, but one person is a personal finance expert but really capitalizes on Gen Y or baby boomers, then when that person lands on their website or their Twitter account, they're going to see that and they're going to be, oh wow, they really understand Gen Y, they really understand baby boomers. I'd rather go with them than the generalist. People want to deal with specialists, and what all the research states is that companies are looking to hire specialists, but job seekers are positioning themselves as generalists, and that's really a huge issue right now.
Right. So in your mind, why is it so important that people build up their own personal brand?
Well, I mean, there's many different reasons. One is that it's really empowering to just put your foot down and saying, this is who I am to the world. And the internet is very interesting because it is kind of like the law of attraction. If you really put the true you out there and define who you are and who you serve and what makes you special and unique, then those type of opportunities are going to come directly to you. But if you position yourself based on the job you have and you hate that job, then you're going to keep getting those type of opportunities, and really you're not going to get anywhere, and you're not going to be able to build a career that you're really happy about. Also, building personal branding is important because when you're talking to anyone, you go to a networking event or whatever you do, you'll be able to feel comfortable being who you are, and you'll communicate the same message, and so people will be able to follow that. You'll be top of mind, especially if you contribute online to online discussions, and that's going to do wonders for your career.
Gotcha. So we talked a little bit before the interview, and we were talking about how personal branding has kind of changed over the years, right? So where was it, and how has it evolved, in today's life?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I've been following it since October of 2006, and now we're in 2011. It's pretty unbelievable. What I've noticed is it's being embraced to a much higher level, and it's really driven by social media technologies, which obviously you're familiar with, HubSpot's familiar with. Because when you say personal branding to an audience now, they immediately associate that with social media. And what's very interesting is personal branding is not a fad. A lot of people are like, oh, it's going to go away. It was first written about in 1997, and if you really dive into the concept, I mean, it always existed through celebrities, through whoever else. But really, the social networking has tangibilized it. That's the big difference, when not just Lady Gaga can have her own platform, but everyone can at a very, very micro level. It's the whole rise of the micro celebrities, and everyone's famous for 15 minutes. Everyone can have their own platform and build their brand on top of that platform based on what they enjoy doing.
Right.
And now, I mean, it's been so popularized, like all the mainstream media, from the Today Show to Wired magazine, anywhere they all mention it. It's been embraced heavily by the technology bloggers like the TechCrunches, the Mashables, and there's thousands of results. There's classes in school across the world that just teach personal branding. There are personal branding classes. I've even heard of a personal branding certification in Japan and China. Right. So it's really, really, really interesting. And I remember when some of the publishers I was talking to, I think a year ago, I was trying to do another personal branding type book, and they're like, oh no, it's a fad, it's going to die out, when it's not. Obviously, it's just constant growth every year because it's growing with more and more social technologies that are being brought up, like Quora.com and now Google+, which I think is really fascinating, and there's definitely a lot more to come. So I see there's going to be new ways and new mediums to communicate your brand in the future, multiple applications.
So would you say that it's kind of like, there used to be classes, taught on resume building, right? But now it's more about personal branding, building up, you as an individual to make yourself a really valuable asset that a lot of people want to work with, right?
I think, and based on all the research and studies that I've looked at, obviously companies are using social networks and search engines, 80% of them for background checks in the recruitment process, and 60% have gotten rid of a candidate because of what they've seen online, probably on Facebook. Another thing that it just got approved by, I think, the Federal Trade Commission, that companies can now scour through social networks, build reports on individual candidates, and sell it to employers, and that's legal now. So it's going to be like the drug test in the recruitment process. Like, you work for any big company, you have to go through a drug test. It's going to be standard. Right. You're just going to go through your social networks, and that's why you have to manage your brand. You have to be found online, because if you're not found, you don't exist, and you have to manage your brand, because as you grow and develop, everything has to be updated to reflect that.
Gotcha. So what steps can people take to start, building their brand online?
Yeah, I mean, the real basics is you need your own website. You really need what a lot of people call a home base. So for me, danschawbel.com. For you, davidwells.com, even though it's probably taken. Everyone needs their own
site. It's taken 1996, man.
And you got to claim it before someone else does. And if you don't have it, then maybe use your middle initial or your full middle name, or just brand yourself according to a topic. There's certain ways around it. You just need something. And in my opinion, I think we're at a point where, unless you're a designer, I think it's time to really invest money or time in developing a higher level or a nicer website than just a templated website that you copy from somewhere else. Because there's 160 million blogs, and there's infinite amount of websites. So if you want to stand out, if you want to be taken seriously, you have to put the investment in. And if you really care about your career, you'll do it. Right. A lot of people are saying, a lot of young people are like, oh, I don't really know what I want to do. So my advice to younger people is start with a little bit larger of a topic until you figure out what you want to do, and then quickly narrow yourself. Because it's pretty easy to switch domain names. It's pretty easy to evolve your website and everything you're doing. But if you start too niche and it's not really what you want to do, it might close you off a little bit. So when you're younger, it's better to do that.
So yeah, so what are some of the common misconceptions that people have about personal branding? You wrote a post a while back, the top 5 personal branding myths. So let's dive into those.
Yeah, one of them is personal branding versus image management. So image management is manipulation and control of your image to fit the public criteria and what's socially okay. And personal branding is unearthing what's true and unique about you. It's leveraging your strongest asset, which is your personality, no one can really copy you and who you are if you're yourself. It's something I believe. Another one is that personal branding is all about jobs seeking, and that's not true, even though a lot of times you see in the media that people connect building a personal brand with getting a job. It's more than that. It's about establishing your career. It's about being able to, connect your passion with your expertise and really formulate your own platform and brand on top of that. And whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you're a consultant, whether you work for a company, regardless, whether you're a student, whatever your position is, you always have to market yourself. For an example is, if you're a student, you should have a business card, even if you don't work for a company. And when you start doing this and you train yourself early to have that, like when I was job seeking and when I was in college, I'd have a business card, a website, I was doing all this ahead of time. It trains you for later in life, and it also gives you materials that you can use that will constantly market you. So building your LinkedIn profile, doing all of that right now, as long as you're committed to updating it over the long term, is going to constantly help you. And you know what? What's really interesting? You go to sleep right now and your LinkedIn profile is still up, and you might be getting emails and opportunities just by having it there, even if you're not aggressive using the tool. But more and more what we're going to see is you're going to have to start being very, very aggressive using the tool. The tools force us to update on a daily basis. Everything's dated online. So if you're not active, it's going to really hurt you. And another thing that's been interesting to follow now is how different skill sets work. So, hard skills. Everyone needs hard skills. You don't get jobs without hard skills. Soft skills, like being able to hold a conversation with someone, being well organized, writing skills, leadership skills. Those are really important, especially when two people have the same hard skills. They both can computer program. What's the difference is who can get along with everyone else at work. And now what we're headed into is the world of online influence. And this is really the third phase of differentiation. And whether you're a job seeker or an entrepreneur or whatever you are, is you have to be able to build your own platform, gain followers, become influential to that group. And if you think about it, if there's two job seekers and they have the same hard skills and soft skills, the one that has the largest network, the most influential network, and the biggest reach is going to be more successful and probably get that job, because they're not just bringing themselves to that job, they're bringing a whole market to that job that the company can tap for recruitment purposes, maybe for lead generation, just for overall marketing. And that's huge. And that didn't exist, 10 years ago. And so more and more we're seeing with the cloud scores and different reputation scores, companies are really embracing it. I think 20,000 companies have embraced. Right.
And I would say on that same note, the person that has their own website and is easily findable online, and it's two candidates, trying to go for the same place.
Yeah.
The one that's going to be easily found, is more likely to get that job or whatever it is they're going for, right?
Yeah, companies love passive candidates. The people who are active are typically the ones who are more desperate, and the people who are passive are typically the ones that have like really strong skill sets, and that companies really, want to go after. So if you're active, the best time to network is when you have a job. And most people only network when they're looking for a job, and that's the issue. And it shouldn't be called job searching. It should be called opportunity searching. I think job searching has a bad rap. So if you think about it more of building your brand in order to get new opportunities through inbound marketing and maybe sometimes outbound marketing, that's what's really going to pay off over the long term. You have to train yourself to be able to attract opportunities and then to be aggressive and go after opportunities.
Gotcha.
And the more you do it, it's just going to be easier.
Right. And so with personal branding, it's not just if you're looking for another job outside of another company, right? It's also for like internal, visibility and what have you, right?
It's everything. Yeah. I mean, it's not just about moving up in a company anymore. It's about moving left to right. It's about, taking special projects out on the side after work. Like what I do, even aside from my consulting company, I do writing for like the Forbes, and I write for all these outlets, and I do more than I do speaking. I do all that because everything is going to support you in the long haul. As long as you can build it into your overall story, it's going to be more and more compelling each time you do that. And starting small, writing for smaller sources or speaking for maybe your college that you graduated with, and leveraging that to get your next opportunity, and just building and building and building and building on that, eventually you're going to get to where you want to be.
Gotcha. So a lot of people out there would argue with the idea of personal branding and say, there's a really fine line between personal branding and kind of tooting your own horn, right? So
Sure.
where do you make that distinction?
So you have to give more than you receive. You have to have a balance between value contribution and self-promotion. People have different ratios. I don't even think of ratios anymore. You just have to figure out what's right based on your audience and what you're looking to do. So for me, what I usually do is, here's 8 pieces of value, and then I'm going to promote, my next event, or I'll promote my book, or I'll promote, the next issue of my magazine, or something like that. So as long as you feel that you're giving more than you're taking, you're doing a great job.
Okay, gotcha.
It's got to be a gut instinct. You can't. Ratios are great, but you don't want to have different ratios. You don't want to tell your audience, hey, it's my 10th tweet and I gave you all this, so now you have to go buy my book. Like, you don't want that. It's too transactional.
Right.
You just want it to flow.
You just want it to be organic there. Yeah, awesome. So you basically own page 1 on Google for the term personal branding. What steps did you take to kind of accomplish this? So
my number one goal when I first started out was own the first page of Google. I wanted that to be my homepage. I didn't, and I bought personalbranding.com. Like I have 45 domain names with personal branding, so I knew instinctively when I read Tom Peters' article back in early 2007 that I knew what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. So I just kept making the investment. It just felt right. And I knew that the blog was definitely the best way to get to the top, and that I had to work really hard to boost it all the way to the top. So personalbrandingblog.com, it has personal branding in it. The title has personal branding. The description has personal branding in it. If you look on the main page and you do like a control find, or you analyze the homepage, it has personal branding, I think, 35 times. It's pretty strategic, but it's not overly strategic. So if you look at the blog posts, you're supposed to have a density of like 0.04 or something like that.
Yeah, there's all kinds of different.
I don't do any of that. It takes too much. I don't have enough time to do that, and it's too much. Right. So we do the best we can, and when I started out, I wrote 10 to 12 posts a week. I commented on every blog that mentioned personal branding. I wrote for articles which link back. And I networked with as many people as I could. That's really the basics right there.
Right.
And I did that for 6 months, and I still somewhat do it. But now my role's changed in order to scale, because I do so much that I have 12 to 14 writers writing every single week on personalbrandingblog.com. And my role is not even to write on that blog anymore, because the blog is personal branding. So it's a concept that can have multiple people underneath it, multiple co-authors. If it was danschawbel.com, people would expect the content to only come from me.
Right.
So what I do is I write for all these other sources. I do all these other interviews, and I get them all to link back to the blog, which supports all the authors who blog for me.
Right, absolutely. And
I had to scale and change my strategy in order to support everything else I wanted to do in life.
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of the things that I admire about you. You write for all these different outlets. Like, you write for Forbes, all these like big names. You've written articles on Mashable, like really, really credible websites. You're doing guest posts, and you're getting those links back. And I think that's one of the things that's really powerful in terms of ranking, owning page 1 of Google, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not like a 2-month strategy. You have to really, really go for it. And again, it goes back to the beginning of our conversation. You take a niche, how you want to position yourself, then it's going to be much easier, and it's going to take a little bit less time than if you want to be the social media, the personal finance person, because there's so much competition. So the smaller the niche, the easier it will be to rank high for those terms.
Gotcha. So you just mentioned that you do a bunch of interviews. So you definitely leverage the power of outside experts. You've done some, really great interviews with some guests: Larry King, Steve-O from MTV's Jackass, Seth Godin, and Sammy Hagar, just to name a few. So but they're mostly text-based interviews, right?
It's a mix. It depends on the level of celebrity.
Okay.
So if you're
why most of them I noticed were text. Is there a reason why you went with text? Is it just easier to kind of go with that? What was the thought process there?
easier / I'm an introvert. I'm not big into doing video or audio. I'm not. I really push myself because it's important and you pretty much need to for some of these interviews. Larry King is not going to type out it. He doesn't answer his emails. He doesn't own any of his social networking accounts. You can read it. You can read it in the interview too. He has people run it all for him because it's just not his thing, right? And it's not. He's still going to be. He doesn't need them to be successful, right? Maybe in today's world he might need them. Who knows?
Right.
But sometimes these interviews are very, very hard to land. Like the hardest one was Chelsea Handler. It took me 8 months to land her in an interview. I was working with her team for 8 months. So basically the way I operate is it's the never give up strategy. It's the same. It's how I got my book deal. It's how I got everything. It's like you set your mind to it. You say, you know what? I'll do whatever it takes to interview this person, even if it takes a year or 4 years. Like Donald Trump, it's been 3 years. I've interviewed his daughter. I've interviewed his COO. I'm building the story. He likes Larry King. I'm building the story so once I get to interview him, it'll be even 10 times better.
Gotcha.
And sometimes I have to use a brand to open the door. Sometimes I don't. It really depends on the level. So if I reach out to, Larry King or Chelsea Handler or someone at that level, those are probably the two of the biggest ones. I have to bring in a brand, right, that they're familiar with because they're big time. So I bring in Forbes, and that opens the door. If I brought in personalbrandingblog.com, it wouldn't open the door. Maybe 30 years from now, maybe with a different group, maybe with a tech entrepreneur, that would open the door because they'd be familiar with blogs. But some of the more traditional individuals are not going to be as familiar with blogs, so those won't really open the doors like the traditional.
Right. So it's all the work that you've been doing over the years, kind of building and building and building on itself. And I think
and when I reach out to them, I'm like, I've interviewed 400 people, like such as A, B, C, D, E, F, G, right? And because of the track record, they trust me as someone who's interviewing them more than someone who has no track record. So between the brand name and the track record, and then just like overall credibility, like they'll Google me and they'll say, oh, he's a credible person. So between all of that,
right. But if they can't find you,
it doesn't happen all the time.
Yeah,
it doesn't happen all the time. I get rejected a lot, and that's fine because it's just, I guess, when you get rejected so many times as like an entrepreneur and you're doing all this thing, it doesn't really bother you as much. It's like, wow, you rejected me now, I'll see you in a year,
Gotcha.
And that actually happens.
So for the people out there watching, what would be the one thing that you tell them to do today to like start doing their personal branding? What's the most important thing in your mind?
Yeah, try and be committed to a topic, as soon as you can, because that's really going to help you out. It's going to really focus your energy. If you try and do everything, if you try and be like the dog lover and the marketing person and the operations person, it's just people are going to get confused. You just won't stand out. It's going to be too tough to manage too. So really, it's like the long tail. The more specific you are, the easier it will be to stand out. And I think it's hard. It's hard to really find out what your passion is when you want to concentrate on. But if you can invest in that, or you can experience so many different things that you narrow it down in your head, that's really what's going to be great for you. Like my friend and someone who works for me, Tim, he narrowed everything down. He's a musician, plus he's part of my millennial branding company. He helps with like consulting and events and everything. And so now he's the sound branding guy, and we're going to help brand him as that and take him into the market for sound branding. It's kind of a brand new topic, and I think it's important to just kind of be creative yet mesh everything you've done and everything you want to do together as best you can.
Gotcha. Cool. So Dan, where can people find you?
All right, I have to plug my big event first. It's digitalmedia3.eventbrite.com, and we have 120 something people signed up. There's only, I think, 25 spots left, and it's really exciting.
That's here in Boston, right? For everyone out there,
Cambridge,
Boston for it.
You should come to it. Cambridge, Massachusetts. We have Larry Weber, who's the co-founder of Weber Shandwick. We have the senior vice president, Hill Holiday. We have the head of communications at Harvard. We have like a really, really good group, and I'm very excited about it. If people want to find me, you just Google personal branding, or you Google Dan Schawbel, and you should be able to get more information there.
Awesome. Well, yeah, thanks for coming on the show, man. I appreciate it.
It's been a pleasure. Long time coming.
Yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure. And I want to get you back sometime in the future when personal branding evolves even further. So.
You got it.